We're in the middle of Perek Yud Aleph. Actually, I don't want to say the middle. I'll say we're towards the end of Perek Yud Aleph. Have, including tonight, 3, maybe 4 weeks more of Perek Yud Aleph, but it's been months, literally, of this Perek, because it is extremely long. To recap, of course, we've been focusing on the Midah of Nikias in general, about perfecting one's mitzvah observance in every single avenue, in every mitzvah, in every permutation, every detail possible, to be as careful and meticulous, knowledgeable about everything that's relevant. So he just started though, and in the previous paragraph that we ended with, he said, I'm now going to basically shift gears and start focusing not on mitzvos, but on midos. And he was focusing on many mitzvos that are the most prevalent for people to stumble in, the most difficult, the ones where Yetzer Hara comes to us and tries to get us, unfortunately, sometimes very successfully, gets us to mess up. And now he's going to start focusing on and going to list specific midos that he wants to focus on. Now I'll let him do the speaking. Says the Ramchal, "V'hine hamidos hein rabos." There's so many midos, so many character traits, so many avenues. Hikfi kol ha'pu'ulos sheshaychim la'adam ba'olam k'mochem midosen shacharein hu nimshach lepu'ulosav. Where he says that there are so many character traits within a person, and each of those character traits, of course, affects the way we're going to perform mitzvos and the way we're going to live our lives and do our actions, right? So if you just take anger, for example, right? So anger is going to affect a lot of things for how we're seen and for what we do. And he says, however, that just like we spoke when it came to mitzvos, that we have to cleanse ourselves and in every way. That in things that a person will stumble in, thus we focused on many mitzvos that people stumble in. So too now we have to focus on midos that are primary of importance for us to focus on, that are very, very much a part of human nature and part of our, like, we're habituated into doing. The haim and these midos are, he's going to focus on 4 right now. Hagaiva, right, arrogance, Kaas, anger, kina, jealousy, taiva, and desire, the lust or desire. It says, Haim kol eila midos ros asher rasam nikarsam before someone. It says all these things I just listed, they're known to be bad things. It's obvious. It's clear as day to all of us. Ein tzarich l'ra'ayos. I don't need to bring any proof for you that a person shouldn't be angry, that a person shouldn't be jealous. Because it's obvious that they themselves are bad, and the consequences and what will result from you if you behave in that way will be detrimental. Because all of them go against common sense, right? How often is it, just to give one example, how often is it where a person's angry, and let's say, I'll just use, this is an extreme, but this does happen. Let's say a person's angry about a mess that's made. And they're so angry about the mess that they take food and they throw it. And they make a bigger mess, right? It's something that hopefully we don't do. Hopefully we're not at that level in our anger. But something that has definitely been done, right? A person's upset about a mess and they'll make a bigger mess themselves, right? It doesn't make any sense to do that, but that's what happens when you're ingrained in these negative, in these midos rows. And each and every one of these things could bring a person to sin. Ala gaiva mikra male mazhir ve'omer. That when it comes to gaiva, when it comes to haughtiness, we are warned in Dvarim, that if your heart gets full, you get haughty, you're going to forget Hashem. Regarding anger, we are told, the Gemara in Shabbos and Daf Kuf He Amud says that anyone who's angry, it's viewed in your eyes as if you're viewed as if you're serving avodah zarah. Alakina v'atayva shnina b'hedya, Pirgavos Parak Daled Mishnah Kafalef. It says Akina v'atayva kav motzim es ha'adam min ha'olam. That these are two of the three things listed in the Mishnah that remove a person from this world. A person is not going to be able to, I don't think necessarily means they'll physically deserve death, but certainly spiritually, it is not going to be good for you whatsoever. However, so he started by saying that I don't really need to discuss these. It's obvious that these are bad. I could give you, like, we all know the proofs. He says, but we do have to discuss them because there are so many details related to them that are relevant, right? So like the big things, yeah, we know that. But to work on it, and why it's here in this chapter of Nikiyas. Nikiyas is specifically trying to perfect oneself in this area. And for a person, let's say, take the average person and ask them, like, do you get angry? Or how often do you get mad? They might say, I don't know, I don't get so angry, or here and there. But if you look at them, if you look at their actions on a daily basis, maybe you'll see that, they were by a red light and the person in front of them was texting. And when it turned green, that person waited 5 seconds to start their car. And you honked, you're saying, like, oh, what's going on? This is going to cause me to be delayed more. That wasn't counting in this person's cheshbon of, are you angry? When's the last time you got angry? Right? So there's so many permutations, so many instances that happen that we have to, if a person wants to really purify themselves of these midos, you have to wipe away all of that. Right? I'm not saying not to honk per se, but I think you understand. So, as I just said, because they're all part of the same vine. And I want to speak about these one by one. He says, Hine klal inyan hagaiva huzeh. When it comes to arrogance, haughtiness, here's the deal. And the rest of the night we're going to be spending on this. The Adam Mashir, let me before I start, just a few words. He's going to be talking about different types and different forms of arrogance. And it's really it's a beautiful psychological insight into human nature, where when we think about arrogance, about you, but when I think about arrogance, I just picture someone who clearly boasts about everything that they feel they are, about all their accomplishments, about all their capabilities, and someone who's just so open about it, and it's clear as day that this person is haughty. You see this a lot of times with athletes, with celebrities. Not all of them, of course. I'm sure there are plenty that are humble, and but nonetheless, this is something that is certainly done. And I do want to read. There's a decently long footnote here, but it's extremely important. And as opposed to me just paraphrasing it, I want to say it not necessarily in their words per se, but it's in I guess the Art Scroll words. And this is also important because what this footnote is discussing is, I guess, finding the balance between on the one hand, not being haughty, but on the other hand, having a good level of self-esteem and recognizing your own strengths and feeling good about what your strengths are and what you have or are able to accomplish. So where's the balance? If I feel good about the fact that I could control my anger, does that make me haughty? Does that mean I'm a Baal Gaiva? So I'm going to read as follows. This is from, it says, it's going to be quoting Ali Shor. So Rav Wolbe in Ali Shor notes the importance of distinguishing between the false pride that Ramchal describes here, which is extremely harmful, and a healthy self-esteem, which is a primary requirement for serving Hashem effectively. A proper self-esteem develops from the recognition that every human being is endowed with profound importance and a unique mission, and that Hashem has provided him with the talents and abilities he needs to fulfill that mission. In light of this, it is crucial for a person to be aware of his positive attributes. As Rabbi Yerucham Levovitz remarked, woe to the person, this is an amazing line, let's not list, woe to the person who's unaware of his shortcomings, for he does not know what to correct, but double woe to the person who's unaware of his strengths, for he has no idea what his mission is. Right? So it's bad for a person to not realize things that might cause a downfall. It's even worse for a person to not realize the strengths that they have inside of them. I think it's very powerful. So it's important to realize that when you discuss these things now for the next few minutes related to arrogance, that there is healthy self-esteem that a person should have, which doesn't go against this view of not being arrogant. That's that a person thinks of themselves as if they are chashuv. I'm an important person. And that in his heart, he believes that he's befitting of all the praise in the world. The amnam says that this viewpoint, this way of thinking about oneself could actually come from almost opposite viewpoints, opposite ways of looking at it. Meaning we're going to get to the opposite points soon, that's what I thought he was saying here, but he's saying that there's a lot of different avenues basically where a person could be a Baal Gaiva. You could have someone who feels that they're extremely intelligent. You could have someone who feels that they're very attractive. Someone who feels that there's someone who considers themselves very dignified. Someone who considers himself great. Someone who's very wise. But the common denominator of all this, that if a person has strong feelings in any area of how good they are, then they run the risk of being a Baal Gaiva and causing sin for themselves. However, that after a person established within their heart that he's worthy of praise and he deserves praise, the result of his thought process, of the behavior that's going to ensue, his haughty behavior, it won't necessarily manifest itself in one way. Like I started with in the introduction, there are many ways. If a person feels that they're God's gift to mankind in whatever avenue, then there are many ways that this Baal Gaiva could manifest his Gaiva. Okay? Allah toldos rabos mishunos tetzena mimena. So many offshoots. Gafilu hafkios nimsa behen, and this is what I was saying earlier. There are things that could appear even opposite. Sometimes we'll see a Baal Gaiva could specifically try to act in a lowly fashion. Binolados misiba achas, but all of them come from the same root. That's the goal. Not the goal, but that's the main point here, to realize that there's many ways that a person can act as a Baal Gaiva that appear totally different, but they all share the same root, which is having an unhealthy sense of self, an inflated sense of self. No, those tibos achash shteihem ledavar echad miskavnos. And both of the contradictory behaviors are directed towards the same goal of eliciting praise from others. And they want the praise from others. They want other people to tell them or tell others how good they are. That's their goal. So he starts with the first group now. The first is the type of person, Baal Gaiva, who shekevan shehu roi letilav, who meyuchad v'rashum b'mayloso k'fi machshavto, roi lo gam kein shisnag b'derach meyuchad v'rashum b'kavod rav. That this is a type of person who feels that he's deserving of so much praise, and he knows this in his heart. He knows he deserves it all. He deserves all the praise, and therefore he's going to make sure to act in such a dignified way that shows that he is, I guess, living up to that praise. That, like, look how I behave. This is who I am because these are my attributes. This is my personality. That the person is dignified. Ben belechto, that when the person walks, he walks only in a certain fashion. Ben bishivta, when he sits down, right? Picture a person who sits down at the table extremely proper and careful. Ben bekumo, the way they get up, the way they stand. B'diburo b'chomasa, the way they speak. They speak in a certain, maybe eloquent tongue. They speak and maybe say only certain words. We'll see he gives certain examples. Obviously, this stuff, and this is applicable to the time period. It's not everything he's going to say is necessarily totally relevant, meaning overall very relevant. But it could be that there are other examples from our time period that we could think of that fall in line with this type with character A. So b'diburo, in the way he speaks, and also b'chamasa, in the way he acts. He acts in a certain way that shows haughtiness. Right? A lot of times when it came to what I was saying about the celebrities or athletes, I would say Dibur and Meiser are the top two, right? The way they speak. And I think I said last week, speaking in third person, right? Celebrities and athletes, right? I remember watching the Michael Jordan documentary and him speaking in third person at times. Like, Michael Jordan would never give up the ball in the fourth quarter, right? You could just say, I won't give up. It's just certain things exude haughtiness. So he says, Lo yilech ela b'nachas gadol, that the person will only walk with great deliberation. Akava b'tzad godlo, that they walk where the front, the heel of one shoe will be by the big toe of the next. Right? They're walking I guess it turns out it looks like baby steps, but they're very, very proper about how they walk. Akeva b'tzad gudalo. It said, Lo yishev ela apraktam. They only sit leaning back. Sign of haughtiness, right? Picture a king in a movie leaning back in his throne, being fed like grapes off the vine. Lo yakum ela ma'at ma'at kenachash. Apparently, then his very dignified way of standing up is slowly, a little bit at a time. Lo yidaber ma'kol ela im nichbedei ha'am. It's for sure, right? A person doesn't want to speak to no one could just come and speak to me. You have to be someone who's a chashuv person. I'm not going to give my time for you. That the person, when they speak, they're going to speak very brief statements. They're going to get to the point right away. Who am I to waste my words on you? Kind of. And all their actions. It's nuosav in the way they move, the pulosav in their actions, macholav and mishad, the way they eat, the way they drink, right? I just picture the way sometimes some noble people are depicted as eating and drinking, mabushav, the way he or she dresses. And b'chol drachav yisnag, b'chleidus gadol. Then all these ways, person conducts themselves with such gravitas. Ke'ilu kol besaro oferes b'chol hatamav even ochol. That when as if here he says like their body is made out of lead, and they're not gonna move for anything, like unless it's just a certain different type of haughtiness. So that's the first one. I think that's a pretty classic type of haughtiness, where a person, to sum it up, like acts as if they're better than others. They act as if they are on such a high status that look how noble I am. And I deserve all the things the praises said about me. And you think you should just come to speak to me, and oh, look how you behave. You behave like such a simpleton, right? That kind of stuff. That's the first level. Sheyasho shalafishu hu ra'letila brav hamalo tzarch sheyah margis haaretz. J'akol yirashu in panav kilo yosher su b'nei adam davar molavakesh meni davar. This is a person who is so worthy of all these praises and such a higher stature that when he's going to speak to others, he's going to do so in like a terrifying way. Like, who are you to come here? You come before me, right? And he's going to make sure that when a person comes, like you have to set up a meeting basically with this person. And if you boldly decide to approach this person, they're going to frighten you. They're going to scream at you. And they're going to make it clear that like, who dare you? How dare you come to me and speak to me in this way or about this? They continually show and depict on their face just anger and being upset over someone smaller trying to approach them. That's the second level. I don't say level. These aren't really levels. These are different forms of holiness. Gay acher shasha belibo shekfar hu kol kach gadol umechubad ashi efshar lekabod she's parish menu ve'ino tzarach lo. Now we're veering from, I guess, the first two. There's certainly overlap between them, or certainly the way I explain them, of people who feel they're worthy and looking down at people who are not and acting in a certain way. And now we're going to see a totally different type of haughtiness. A haughtiness where a person feels they're totally deserving of all the praise in the world, but nothing is sufficient, and therefore you don't need to praise me at all, because nothing will work. He doesn't need any praise at all. And the person will specifically act in a lowly fashion to show others that they don't really care. They don't really need the praise. But here's the kicker, because here's the reason why it's haughty. Because in general, right, imagine if you have someone who is really amazing and they act in a very humble way. They don't need to be treated with butlers, and they'll clean up for themselves. They'll get their own food, right? That seems great. So what's wrong? Here's the key part. The libo mitnase bikirbo lemor. Inside his heart, His heart is swelling with pride. Ani kol kach ram b'chol kach nechbad. I'm so lofty. I'm so distinguished. The person tells other people that, like, oh, nothing. Why you treat me like this? I don't need shlishi, right? But in their heart, that they're gaining so much pride by doing this, and knowing that others are now praising them for all their humility. So that I don't need the honor at all. I shall surely forgo this honor. I'm fine. I'm fine. So that's the key about this person. It's that they enjoy the praise coming from others, and they want more praise. And the only way to really get more praise is to act as if you don't want any praise. Kind of like a reverse psychology in actions, I guess, in Dibur. So that's what we see over here. Probably we'll do one more, the next paragraph. Another type of hardiness. A person who wants to be very noted for his qualities, he wants people to recognize how great he is. That he wants the whole world to share his praises and speak of his praises that he feels he's worthy of. But he also wants people to say that he's the most humble of all the people, the most humble person in the world. And therefore he's going to flee from all this. He's going to lower himself below the lowest people in society. Because he thinks that is the goal of a number. People think, wow, he's the most humble person ever. That he's going to try to stay away from all types of titles. He's going to donate anonymously, hoping people find out, right? The Liba Omer Bekirba, in his heart, he says to himself, there's no person more humble than me in the entire world. The footnote here points out that this and the previous one seem very similar. He says in his Seder Vikuach, the Ramchal explains that the difference between the two is in their attitude. The first type acts humbly and refuses honor because he thinks it's an even greater tribute for him to be above honor, right? The previous person, and to show that it's meaningless to him. The second type, this person, acts humbly because he's so desirous of praise and adulation that he even wants to be praised for being humble. So the previous person thinks they're above all, nothing could give me the proper praise. The second type of person acts that way because he wants people to praise him for his humility. So these are just some of the, I guess, interesting personalities and components to Gaiva. And I hope you found this interesting. Like I said 15 minutes ago, that I only thought of one type of Gaiva. And here it's already broken it down into 4 different types already. And Bez Hashem, we'll continue next week to discuss this more.